7 p.m. on Thursday, January 20th, 2022. I'd like to call the Strategic Planning Committee meeting to order. Councilors Moore, Chase, and Gallagher are present, so we have quorum. Debbie Ward will be recording the minutes, the motions, and the votes. The meeting will be fully remote and accessible to the public through remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Citizens who wish to tune in and participate may do so via the Zoom link posted in the agenda. And the first agenda item is public comment. I see we have two members of the public. If anyone would like to comment, you're welcome to. Ask you to please raise your hand and then state your address when called upon. Would anyone from the public like to comment? I see. I think the host just muted me. Can you guys hear me?
I'm sorry.
No worries. We're fun with technology. Okay, I see. It looks like we have no public comment. So moving on, the first item on the agenda is legislation referred, Resolution R FY 22-006, establishing the town council's vision for Bridgewater. And I thought maybe what we could do is I could pull this up and share it on the screen if that's okay. And then maybe I could provide a little bit of background prior to discussion, if that's all right. Let me pull this together. I'm going to pull up a version of it that is in Word just in case we edit it, but it is the same version that was posted in the agenda. Okay. I think Dennis and Fred, can you see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. I'm going to just pop up the size a little bit. So just a little bit of background on this. What I was hoping to do in anticipation of the need in the relatively near future to set goals for the town manager, and then also just as a follow-up item to some of the offsite activities we had as a town council where we discussed vision and some of the things we wanted to focus on. I thought it made sense to try to take some of those ideas along with the new master plan that was shared with us in draft form and try to put them into a smaller, sort of more concise vision. My thinking here was that this would likely be the first step of maybe a few steps where first we establish the vision, and then from that vision, we can take each of sort of the key pillars and map those to maybe a few metrics where we could kind of see how we're doing in those spaces. And then probably more importantly, we could map those to town goals and maybe even some council activities. For example, you know, if we have something ongoing, the ideal would be we could draw sort of a straight line from a council project that we're discussing back through some of these metrics and ultimately to the vision. So we know, you know, the things we're putting our time against are the things that we agreed were important. That's sort of high level. I think another thing that I called out in the whereas is I think it is important for us to have some of these discussions and try to get down to a smaller paragraph or two versus maybe some of the much longer language in the master plan, because when it comes time for focusing energy and commitment, you know, I think the smaller paragraph that we vetted helps us also understand a little bit about how we might prioritize some competing priorities. And then lastly, I thought it, you know, creating a smaller vision that the council has weighed in on and aligned around gives us something to publish out to the public. So if somebody comes to the Bridgewater webpage, you know, they have a clear sense of what we as a community value and where we're headed. I think it's also something that could be revisited as new councilors join and could become sort of an active living part of, you know, how we as a council just sort of continuously align around what good looks like. So that's a little bit of the preamble there. Maybe before I move into the actual language, is there any discussion on that?
The only thing that I could say, Eric, is I think this is great, and I think that I look at this as we're rejuvenating something. And why do I say we're rejuvenating something? Is because we've kind of been down this road before. And it really wasn't all that long ago. I was one of my first terms on the council. I think it was probably the beginning of my second term in 2017 or 2018. I was on the strategic planning with Councillor Loesch and I forgot who the other person was, but we actually secured some monies to get a consultant to come in to help us write a strategic plan, not really, which would be the same thing as a vision, sort of. And I really don't know where that went, because I got off the committee and was put on. I was put back on, because I was on and I was off. Now I'm back on budget and finance, which is fine. But we were trying to develop that, and we did secure some monies to have a consultant kind of help us with that language of what we wanted to see. So I don't know whatever happened to that. I really don't. Maybe there was a draft form submitted to us. I can't really remember, but I think this is a good start. I mean, a lot of roadblocks that we run into is, I think we have all had good ideas, all of us, past, present counselors, but sometimes they just get lost. They just because how many times have we asked for an update on the town hall? How many times have we had an update on the park system? How many times have we asked for an update on what's happening with the common and the rails being torn down? How many times have we asked, why is that flag still crooked? I mean, we put these things out there, and it's the delay in getting things done, which is what I have been frustrated with as a counselor, is that once we appropriate monies and give the town manager the authority to do something, we can't meddle anymore. Now it's up to him. He manages the town, and we can't tell him how to do this and how to do that. We can follow up and ask, where is this and what's the status of this? And I know particularly the past couple of years, there's certainly been roadblocks in everybody's way. I understand that. But that's what's been frustrating for me. So, but I think this is another good start to try to bring something forward. I just hope that we don't get discouraged when we do put something together and we say, okay, what is a vision? A vision is, to me, I'd like to see a vibrant downtown. But I think we all do. Okay, now what's the best way to get there? Well, we've studied it to death, and there was a bunch of studies on the shelf or on people's desks. What are we going to do to make a vibrant downtown? We have the traffic study. There's the common, making one side of the common two ways has been discussed, but where are we going with that? How are we going to go that way? So I think this is a good start, Eric. I think, we can have a lot of discussions. To me, I'd like to see a vibrant downtown and have our park systems totally up and running for everybody to visit. That's my vision. And I don't really want to wait till 2035. I don't know how much longer I'll be around.
Yeah, I agree. I figured that date would be negotiable. That's really helpful, Dennis. And I have maybe a thought to share in reaction to that. But Fred, I'd like to maybe hear your perspective too.
Sure, thanks, Eric. I first of all, thank you for having brought this forward, because I think it's really a great effort, and I certainly understand and agree with your motivation behind it and the explanation as to sort of the broad parameters that you've presented tonight, just in speaking about the process itself. I think that a good point that Dennis brings forward is the fact that so many initiatives, I think, tend to lose momentum, not for reasons of lack of interest or lack of commitment, but I just think that so often we're caught up in putting out fires or dealing with deadlines for particular legislation or other kinds of action that have to be dealt with on a timely basis. And we lose sight of the broader picture. It's can't see the forest for the trees type of a situation. So I do think it's probably very useful to revisit this strategic view perspective from time to time, and no better time than right now. So I do think that what you put forward is really a great beginning, and I'm pleased to see that you've drawn upon the comprehensive master plan, because I think that's an item that too often in the past has, to use that expression that Dennis just used once again, it's been put on the shelf and more observed in the breach, shall we say, than actually followed. So that's great. I think that, and I know you've alluded to in the vision statement, I know you've alluded to the open space, to the issue of open space. And I think that's certainly equally important. I think that that's something that just last night, I think that Dr. Hunt alluded to in another context. And I'm certainly very interested in preserving open space. And I would want that to be a particular goal for the council going forward. So I think this is a good foundation and something that absolutely should help to set us on a very good path.
Thank you. So I think maybe actually building on what both of you said, this idea of sort of us stalling, like kind of getting this pattern. And Dennis, you brought it up before, where it's like we paid for this thing, like what did we do with it, right? I mean, you've mentioned a few different examples in the past about that, and so that's something that I was thinking about too. And maybe if I could show just another document really quickly, not for us to debate today, but just as an idea of what a next step might be to take a vision into something that maybe has a higher likelihood of getting momentum. This is not my document. This is something that I've found, but I thought it was actually kind of an interesting idea. What I've seen, I don't know if you can see this, and it's very small. I'll see if I can kind of make it bigger. But what I could imagine the strategic planning committee could do if we align on, what are like the big things in this vision, and let's say open space is one, we could then propose and as a committee work on the list of things that we think actually would create that result. So this might, this is sort of the subset of a city around sort of healthy living, but you can imagine this is open space, and we say, okay, what are like the 3 things we think we need? A connected park system, I don't know, more maintenance of the parks. And then we would say, okay, like what do we think some evidence might be that we're making progress? And then specifically, like what policies could we do or would we assign in the goals of the manager to actually create that outcome? And my thinking is if we move out of like the big 100-page documents into something that's more like a vision, like a 1-page document, we could potentially like pull this up every couple of committee, town council meetings and just say, where are we at with this stuff? Did we do something? So that's sort of like my thinking here of how we could take the start of a vision into like us putting down the list of things we would expect somebody to do to create that vision, and then continuously like reference that at some cadence in the council meetings. Does that make sense? And Dennis, I know you've seen other things. Fred, you too. Has that been tried before?
Well, I mean, I think so. I'm not saying we shouldn't do. I think that lesson learned is that. I mean, I put forward one thing to just to tear down the old highway barn. I mean, that was proposed and the council voted for it. So it was going to happen, but it took a long time, but it happened. I'm just saying it happened. So once we, because anything, I think, I don't know what we would put in a strategic plan. I look at everything as going to have a cost to it. Maybe some things won't, but it's hard not to propose something and there is no cost to it or manpower that should go with it. But you know, like the budget directive that we establish, we've already established a budget directive for the year. I mean, we could put in a budget order to say, you know, for fiscal 2023, you know, we would like to see a comprehensive plan of developing the park system. No, but that's already out there though. I mean, and I like, I know the Styles and Hart, we're trying to get a deed to some land, or, I mean, we paid $500,000, or we did something up on Broad Street to, I can't, and you know, that's just, I mean, we did something, but it's like, okay, well, what's happening? What's happening?
That might even be the first version of just take the stuff that's actually in flight now and just like put it back on the list so we can ask, hey, what's happened? You know, 2 months later, what's happened now? Right. And
and I mean, just one of the exciting things is when we change the zoning down across the street, well, from the Perkins Foundry land, we changed the zoning to allow that developer now to move forward with the next step. You know, some people are going to grumble, why do we need more housing? But he's got other hurdles to go through, I think, before he can start, but he's serious about what he wants to do. And, you know, hopefully the town will work with that developer to, you know, to meet all our needs and so forth. But he's looking to do something on his property to give the residents that are going to live there some open space, if you will, a little park area and things like that. So, I mean, you got the Styles and Hart, you got the Town River Landing that is just so underutilized. And it's just a matter of bringing on, well, you've heard we talk about park stewards, and you know, we have it in the budget, but now we can't meddle. It's in the budget, but we can, you know, we can't really get to, we can ask questions and find out the status, and yeah, that's it. But I think maybe that's something we can work on for a future meeting, is all of us come up with a list, or something of what's the status of this. And we do get an update every meeting about the elementary school, and we get an update on COVID, and if there's specific requests from counselors, he gives us updates. So maybe it's time that we put together a list. I'll put together some of my thoughts and say, you know, what are we going to do with the common? You know,
that would be great.
I mean, and what is the vision for that? You know, before these studies get too old, because once they get too old and then we pull them off the shelf, and then it's time to do a new one. That's what I worry about. But the master plan, is that where it's in draft form, but we haven't had a final presentation, right? See,
Correct.
And I think the lifespan of one of those is about 10 years, I think maybe.
I think that's what we've been told.
Yeah.
So, and it, you know, we have some good reserves in our town. I mean, that is one thing we can say, which was a vision, you know, and we have a solid finance in the town, and to use some of that money to do some smaller projects, things like that. We're able to buy capital equipment that's needed in the town. We're able to do things like that. So it'd be, you know, and look at the capital plan too, because the capital plan, the 5-year capital plan, you know, we can't buy everything in 1 year, but if you look at the long term, and some of the things that we want to do every year might tie in to some of the things that have been delayed, if you will. But I mean, I think if that development goes in down in Perkins Foundry, and if the other Broad Street piece ever gets the light of day again, now you've got people. Now you've got people that are actually living there, and they're going to want to walk out of that front door and go to a restaurant. You know, Music Alley too we saw the effect that had on the community, or has on the community, and hopefully it opens up this summer. I'm sure it will. and just a place for them to go after Music Alley. You know, to get in the car and go home. You know, there's no spot for them to go have a drink that they're comfortable with, I guess, and a nice restaurant. So that's what I envision. I look at the downtown as, you know, some days I drive through there and it's saddening, but sometimes, you know, in the spring when the leaves come on, it's like, okay, it looks nice now.
Yeah.
But we know there's a lot of work that needs to be done down there.
Yeah, and I think building on what you said, you know, I think I'm really excited. I think there's a lot of potential. And if
Yes,
we're able to sort of bundle a few of these projects together so that they're not sort of just a standalone decision about a development or a standalone decision about an old town hall, and it's, you know, these are the 6 things we plan to do to put the puzzle pieces together to make that vision real. You know, I think we can probably track it a little bit easier and probably have some somewhat different discussions about priority on these things too.
and part of the delay with the common has been that during this whole process that the Broad Street development was going through, there was a memorandum of agreement that we signed, the town manager signed with the developer. Because you know, he wanted something, you know, and we wanted something. So there was a maintenance of a mitigation agreement, some agreement that was put forth where he would put forth a lot of money to take care of the World War II, World War I memorial, to do some things with the town hall, do some things with park. And there was a lot of commitments in that memorandum of agreement. And so that project, as you all know, just delay. And now it's just stuck. I mean, he wants to sell the property. So I think that was a dangerous thing to rely on some things that we need done sooner to a developer with all good intentions when the whole project never went anywhere. Yeah, it would have been nice to get free money, but sometimes it doesn't happen. So, I mean, he was going to put money towards the World War I memorial, and I think the flagpole, and some of the other things around the common, and help with some money for the traffic flow, but none of that materialized because the project hasn't gone forward. I mean, some people say it's still a possibility, but you know, do we want to wait?
And that might be another reason why, like, you could imagine if we had already had this plan in place and we saw that that was one of the big strategic projects we needed to work. You know, when we find out it didn't happen, we could immediately say, okay, like what now fills in that gap? Like, to your point, how do we get these things done now? Right? Instead of it just sort of being, you know, like a waiting game. You know, so that's
Yeah. And that's true, Eric, because I mean, we can blame ourselves too. I mean, we can blame all of us on the council, because particularly with this wastewater treatment plant issue or coming forward, you know, we approved the 32 million in 2019. None of us asked any questions, like, until now. He wants another 9 million. Now it's like, oh, but you know, we should have questioned, why is, you know, we approved 32 million, where is that project? And we never, you know, I'm just as guilty as everybody, we never asked that question. And now, because of other factors, it's going to cost the town a lot more money.
Yeah, it's a good point. And that's where I'm thinking, if even to your point earlier, just the list of things you know about that maybe we just put back in front of us and say, hey, do we want to have a conversation about this? Where's this at? You know, I really like that idea that you had.
Yeah.
Probably help us with some of those if there's anything else waiting in the wings like that.
You know, Eric, if I may,
Yeah.
Just procedurally, it seems to me that if we were to whatever extent we find the need, refine the vision statement and put it forward and actually adopt it in the council, I would think that any one of us, or as a committee, we could, well, for example, as a committee, we could bring forward a committee report at any time during a council meeting, and using something in the form of, for example, the matrix that you presented that you had found, you know, indicate that, oh, by the way, one item we're tracking is this. Can we get some conversation going as to the status of this? And, what are the pain points and what progress have we made to this date, et cetera? And initiate a discussion that way. So I think, mechanically, I think it could be a very good tool to actually bring the vision statement, into actual discourse in the council.
That's a great idea. And are we allowed to essentially in those committee updates, we can talk about any topic that's relevant to the committee discussions, right? So to your point, we could in the committee say, hey, I think it's time to talk about the wastewater plant. We could bring that into through that agenda item. We could bring that to the larger council. Right?
We could, exactly.
Yeah,
and
great.
To the extent that it actually needs a formal discussion, if it had to be brought forward on a subsequent meeting, we could do that. But just by bringing it in the form of a committee report, I think is going to be useful in and of itself. And it could also be the stepping stone to a more thoroughgoing discussion.
I think that's a great idea. And I could also imagine us, as new things come in, we could say, let's actually refer this to strategic planning so that it gets on the list and, something that we're tracking as part of one of these strategies.
Well, that's right. And,
yeah.
I think, I'm thinking back, I'm assuming this was probably before you joined the committee, Eric, but if I remember correctly, Dennis, you can judge me on this. I think that Bill Wood and Dennis and I comprised the committee at some point. It must have been last year, how time flies. And we were actually discussing I think what we called at the time, kind of a mission statement for the committee. And we kicked around some ideas and we talked about it. I think we actually vocalized it to the council, maybe without any real hard and fast result. But to your point, for us to bring most any matter, to refer it to the committee, I think is entirely appropriate.
Yeah.
We could do that when virtually anything, calling for a strategic outlook, comes up. It could be referred to this committee.
That's great. Yeah, I like that idea. And if we can even find that mission statement, maybe to your point, we just resurface that and let the council know that we would like these things that actually impact strategy to channel through us, just so we can track them and kind of plug them into the bigger picture. That would be great. Yeah,
I think, I'll certainly try to dig that up. I'm quite sure we can find that again and go from there.
Excellent. Well, thank you both. I mean, I'm excited about this. I think we can play with the wording here on the vision, and then in the next few meetings, sort of trickle in some of these other documents we're talking about creating. And then I would love to get to the point that you're describing, Fred, where now it's just sort of part of what we do, right? Okay, there's a big new thing coming in. Let's make sure we plug it into the right category and someone has eyes on it for a little while. It's great.
And
it's really up to us.
And I'll work on getting a list of things that are like ongoing that we should get.
Yeah, that would be really helpful. And anything that just comes to mind, like you said, something that, okay, we paid for this thing and what happened to it, right? Or some of even the other stuff that's been in flight for a little while. And that would be great, Dennis. So maybe, so kind of moving from like the preamble and the purpose, does it make sense to actually talk about the language here? I think I had heard, I think 2 pieces of feedback, one in open meeting and the other through a phone call. One was about the desire to make sure that, the environment was included. It is important to Bridgewater. And then the second one was actually asking us to think a little bit about the role of commercial in Bridgewater. That was the phone call that I got. So maybe just if I could speak to the environment one first. I was trying to, I am not a wordsmith. So what you're seeing is evidence of me trying to use the right words, but in sustainable infrastructure, I was trying to sort of imply that we would be making infrastructure decisions in a way that is putting the environment first, which I think is the pattern that we've been in for a little while. But that could be something we could discuss. And then the second thing, this resident in particular had talked about the fact that there's just a lot of residential growth, and they were concerned that we're starting to use up available space that we might need for commercial, and asked us to just kind of think about the role of commercial in our vision. And then the master plan has some paragraphs on just kind of how that might work as well. So those are just two additional points that I had heard that we could talk about. Do either of you have a perspective on language that might incorporate them, or that we shouldn't incorporate them?
I would think that the environment, the person, whoever, I think green initiatives, like, I think that would suffice. Environment, I don't know. We have done some things with green initiatives in the environment, particularly with energy. I know Mr. Hunt has worked a lot on saving us a lot of money on electricity. We do have a few electric vehicles that the town uses. We have electric station at the town hall, Academy building. So green initiatives, I think, would go with environment. We passed the plastic bag ban. I see that's a start. We're trying to address the nips in the town. I think that we're working on and recognize that green initiatives are important to a vibrant community, and we have a long way to go in Bridgewater and the whole state. I still get frustrated with trash everywhere, and it's not just Bridgewater. It's nice when we have a snowstorm, but when that snow melts, boy, does the ugliness show right through it. The trash everywhere. But green initiatives, I think, will be in line with environment.
And then what we could do later, as we start to identify some of those policies or actions, we could lump things like a cleanup, trash cleanup, the NIPS, like those things into that green initiatives bucket, essentially. Okay. So does me adding that capture that, Dennis? I just put that in there.
I think
Okay.
so.
Yeah, I think it does, because after all, it's very all-encompassing, and it should be. I mean, as you point out, the fact that it really covers not only clean streets, but renewable use of energy, renewables.
Yeah.
So I think it covers a lot, and I think that's perfectly appropriate. I know that you included community engagement and inclusivity. I think that's very important, because we've spent a great deal of time in the council speaking about diversity and inclusion. And I think it is important to incorporate that into any statement that, that we would profess to characterize or describe our town and our vision. So I think that's very important to have.
Absolutely.
Great. Yeah, I agree on that one too. So I think for me, the idea of commercial, I think the fact that we're saying we want to be a desirable hub of culture, commerce, and education, for me, the commerce, I think, covers that.
Yeah.
And, as we have discussions about how we're building commercial, we can link them to that part of the goal, of the vision. Is there anything else in here that you think we should change before sending it back to the council? I'll even make it a little bit bigger.
Well, let me just ask you, Eric, because you brought it up. So
Yeah.
The year 2035, was there actual significance to that year, or was it just a convenient benchmark that you thought?
Yeah, so I think, and this is probably like my professional life showing through. In my experience, any goal without a date just lingers. And I think it actually, to speak to what both of you raised, is like these things happen, but there's really like not urgency. And so they sort of drift away until somebody remembers. And so I was just picking an arbitrary date to say, like, let's create urgency around a horizon. Like, let's actually try to build momentum and hit a goal. And I just honestly, I'm so new. I don't know how long some of these projects take. So I thought, a 10 to 15 year window is probably realistic to get some of this in. If you guys said, let's put something for 5 years and let's push for it, I would say, okay, I probably just don't have the experience to know the right timing here. But that's the background on that date. There's nothing more significant than me inventing it. Yeah.
I'm almost inclined to suggest we say 2056 would be the 400th anniversary of the founding of the town. But
Yeah,
maybe that might be pushing it. I just think that's not a good idea. Well, no, you raise a good point. From a practical standpoint, how do you designate a goal year or time span for some very broad and all-encompassing achievement like this. I'm sure that we're going to make progress in any number of these areas, and well before that time. It's a piecemeal kind of an approach, but maybe 2035.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I look at it both ways. A year is fine. You could do without a year. You could do it. You say the town of Bridgewater will be a community that is established, has established itself, and then just keep on going. You could phrase it without a year. You could simply say that Bridgewater will be a community that has established itself as the region's most accessible, desirable. You could keep the data in. I'm not saying take it out, but I'm just saying that there's two ways to look at it.
Yeah.
A mission statement, because this is more of a mission statement, right? Not goals.
Yeah, it's more of a vision. So it's like, what does it look like when we're done? That's sort of the perspective.
But it is very aspirational, as it should be.
Sure.
And I think on that basis, that kind of lends itself to having a goal, whether it's a hard and fast year or, but something, some way to actually designate, here is our ultimate target.
Right.
Yeah. So if it's something like,
it doesn't matter. I just think it could be some of the things, you put a year on there, then there's always that, even on the capital plan, there's 5 years out. Some things are more of a priority that will take the full length of the 5 years, and some won't. And we disagree. Some might disagree and say, well, that should be now, not 5 years out. But I'm okay with either keeping it. I'm okay with keeping the year. And where will I be in 2035? Let's see. I will be 72.
there you go.
I hope I'm still alive.
Yeah, still running. So should I leave it in there then, and maybe we can get a sense from the council on whether or not they have a preference on the date piece? I could, or do you want me to? Okay.
I'm inclined to say leave it in, but that's
okay. Let me.
We can debate it.
Yeah. Oop. I went one edit too far. So there we go. All right. I think that's it. Any other edits on this? Suggestions?
I don't know. It says a lot of, again, aspirational, but also very practical and realizable things that people can relate to. I like it.
Great. I think I'm comfortable with it too. Dennis, are you comfortable with it?
Yep, I am. I think it covers, it covers everything. People need a place to live. That's number one. I mean, we are building all these houses, you're right, and we probably have more developments coming. But I don't even think we need to try to do that. That's going to happen. The issue is what do we do with the people that are here? What do we have for them to do? And I think if we had a vibrant, thriving downtown, and some more outdoor recreational options. I mean, you know that Marathon Park is well used. I mean, it's packed when it's nice weather. I mean, we need more of those and more options like trails, dog park, other things in the town. To launch it, how many people really take a canoe and launch it from the town river landing? It's like,
Right.
if it was more inviting to go down there, I think more people would. It just isn't inviting.
Yeah.
It's
And
not a lot of money. It isn't a lot of money.
no, and I would love to see, I would love other people from other towns to say, like, let's go to Bridgewater today to hike, or let's go walk the path, or let's go walk the river. That would be great. All right, so I think with that then, I'm just trying to procedurally, do I entertain a motion to refer back to council? What are the words that I should be saying here as the chair? I guess.
I would make a motion that we recommend the recommended for adoption by the council.
Great.
I'll second that.
All right, and I will do a roll call vote. Fred?
Yes.
Dennis?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. So the motion passes 3 in favor, 0 against. All right, I will pull this down so we can look at each other. I think that is it. Carlton, I do see your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Carlton Hunt. Fantastic discussion. Point on, right on. I just wanted to make a couple of points, if you don't mind. Since I didn't before because I didn't know exactly where you were going to be going to. Recalling that you are a strategic committee, you set the high bar, and that's good. And the way you've done that, it then ties back into the tactical. My hand's showing up only because I'm in my dark room.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
So the tactical aspects are the master plan. So having that higher level and thinking about the hierarchy of strategy, tactics, and implementation, this is excellent. And speaking to your language that you said about how do you do, I think the town council has the right to bring up any topic at any time with the town manager. And I personally would like to see a systematic process whereby, for example, all the committees that are in the town code, the administrative code, that are required, such as the Energy Committee, such as the CPC, such as the town clerk, who are all required in the admin code to give an annual report to the town council, that becomes a standard practice. Not just council committee reports, but town committee reports should become an established practice, so that you guys, because some of us on the committees know more about what's going on than the town does actually. So that's a second point. The third point is the table that you showed is fantastic. That actually, if you go to the Mansfield master plan, you will see a fantastic approach to actually looking at the tactical aspects of meeting the strategic goals. And and we did this in Bridgewater for the 2014 master plan update. And I tracked for 10 years those actions. So there was the goal, there was the tactic, there was the who did it, and there was the fiscal year that it was supposed to be done in. And having that kind of tracking against, actually the master plan is what I would do it, but at the strategic level, tracking the strategic actions at some level like that is fantastic. The last thing I will point out is that I have to recover my thoughts here for a minute. It's up to you guys to manage the town manager. And I think one of the things that's missing in this town is the town manager putting forth an annual work plan. It's not a strategy. It's not a plan. It's not a tactic. It's the actual plan. What are you going to do? I'm going to approach environment or green community this way. I'm going to do this for housing this way. I think that to manage the town manager, you need to have that level of documentation from him. It goes with the budget. You do the budgeting, and the budgeting provides certain things. So what's the plan for spending the money? What's the work plan? I'm going to have the Community Economic Development Committee work with the planning board to improve housing and community preservation. Housing's the greatest need we have in town for people. We heard that a little bit last night. The town has a housing trust that can be funded by the CPC. That housing trust has no one appointed to it right now. That's how we can get things done. So that's the tactics leading to positive responses. I'm sorry it takes so long to talk, but I really think putting it on the council agenda to have regular committee, boards, and commission updates would go a long way to help understanding where the town's going, and maybe actually start to get some more management of towards the goals and the tactics here.
Great.
I could talk forever about it, but I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the input, Carlton. I appreciate it. All right, I think with that, we could probably entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
I would second the motion.
All right, roll call vote. Dennis,
Yes.
Fred,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. All right, thank you both for the input. I'm excited about this. We will get another meeting on the calendar to keep it going.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.